Hi everyone, Leanne here from Aussie Quick Quilt. Today I'm going to share with you our Aussie Quick Quilt strip cutter as well as our safety rulers. Ralph invented this for my mum. She was 85 at the time and rang crying. She'd cut herself again with a rotary cutter because no matter what you do with a normal ruler, you pop it down, you're trying to cut and you're pushing against it so it moves to the left, or you're trying not to push against it so it doesn't move and it whips off to the other side. We've all been guilty of that. You know, your points aren't quite pointy because the thing's moved. That's what this is all for. And you can thank my beautiful mum and Ralph for this invention. Whether you're left or right-handed, it makes absolutely no difference with the strip cutter because, as you can see, 0 to 20 and 0 to 20. Now, when you've been using a traditional board, you would pop it up, a traditional ruler, you'd pop it down and you'd have your fabric, if you're right-handed, this side, because you'd have your ruler here, trying to cut here and measuring that way. Still slip, slip, slips. With the Aussie Quick Quilt strip cutter, it's a little bit of training, but we do it a little bit differently. It's in reverse because now you're starting at 0. And even if you're left-handed, you can still do the same thing. Lifting it up. It's got, this is actually the very first one ever made. You might see those little scuff marks there. It's got little teardrops to put your blade in and little teardrops to pull your blade out. When you run your blade down, make sure you stop before you hit that teardrop because it will blunt your blade and you'll also end up with a lovely slot there. Lift that up out of the way. You can use your cutting board as a cutting board and keep this up out of the way. But when you need it, this is how I like to cut. Have your fabric, selvage to selvage. And this is my fold line. I leave it down a little bit just so I can see that that's parallel. Pop it on. Now I'm lining up the horizontal line. Don't come down past the 2 because you're going to be into the teardrops then. So if you line it up around the 2 and pop it back down, give it a wiggle over, blade in and square it up. And you can see that went straight through. If you're not sure, the beauty of this, it's within 1/100th of a millimetre. You can leave that down. You can go away. You can do other things. If you're in the middle of cutting and the phone rings, it doesn't matter. It's not going to go anywhere. It's even apparently cat proof. I had a lady send me a photo of her cat sitting on it and it didn't move. So it's very cat proof. It doesn't, even if you've gone through it and cut and you go away and come back, you can do that one again because it hasn't moved. You're not going to wreck anything. The other beautiful thing about this is if you're not sure that you've put enough pressure, now it does need a little bit of pressure, but not huge amounts. So put your blade in the teardrop. Make sure you are straight up and down above that blade and cut through. As you're cutting, you must move your body. Ralph, could I just have a visual, a front shot? I'm going to pop my guide and I'm going to explain these guys again in a moment. But I'm cutting 1 1/2, so. Can you see how I'm moving my body with it? I'm not standing here and trying to cut over there because you'll be twisting that blade. You run the risk of 1, cutting it crooked and 2, breaking the Perspex on top or the acrylic on top. So if you move your body, and as we always joke in class, if you put your Fitbit on while you're cutting your quilt, you're doing your whole aerobic workout at the same time, your steps are up right there. So cut through if you're not sure. Now, that one to me didn't sound like it went right through, so I'm going to put the blade back in and go through again. And you can see that that's a perfect cut there. So you can see where I am here on the video, but when it's a top shot, it's one of those strange wider angly things so that you can see the whole lot. So it might look like my blade is twisted. It really is not. It is perfectly parallel with the lines. Now, I'm just going to get rid of those. Use those again in a moment. Reset this up. I'm going to take my guide out. Now, it's not just for strips. Obviously, you can do strips, you can do squares, you can do rectangles, triangles. You can use up scraps of fabric. So if you've got a stash and you want to iron it all out, you can cut that up here. I've just got this here because it's a little bit easier just for me at the moment. Now with your guides, you can see here we have 3 different guides giving you 6 different sizes. How you use these, simply slide it in under the frame there and under the frame. You line it up at the 0 and it knocks out or notches out the ones that you don't need to cut. Can you see all that? So that's the 1.5. You simply turn it around and it gives you the 2.5 inch one, depending on what you need. Now, when you get your kit or when you have received it already, depending on where you're at with your journey, some of these can be a little bit more marked, and also some of the, we call it overburn because we're completely off the grid here. We are completely reliant on solar power. So sometimes if the sun's really, really out, the power kicks in a little bit. It really doesn't matter. It's called overburn. It'll wear off on here, no time flat, but it's all laser cut. Rather than being printed, every notch, everything you see is all cut by us on the laser. And so even if these are a little bit, it's overburn, makes it a little bit blurry, but if you give it a wipe off, it should just come off. It doesn't affect the ruler at all. I just wanted to explain why sometimes they can be a little bit darker than yours might be slightly darker than your friends if you're comparing them. So popping this in, I'm now going to square that up again. Just make sure that it's gone right through. Now, I've had a couple of people, I will just point this out, say when they get to this point here, just because that's a tiny little bit hanging over, it tends to kink. All you need to do is put one finger there if you're not sure to go through. Once you get the hang of it, I don't have to do that anymore. I cut 60 quilts a week, so that's okay. But just one finger in case you need to, going through and chopping and moving your body. Now, when you've been cutting constantly on that 0, I had a question last week, how long does your blade last? Well, it probably isn't your blade that's blunt because they last a very long time. It's probably that you've worn a groove. Let me take that out. Where the 0 mark is. Can you see here? I'm constantly cutting, constantly cutting. Now to avoid that, once I cut a quilt, all I do, pop it down. This is where you undo these and move it over. You can move it all the way over. Let me be a little bit dramatic. Until, as long as this frame is still touching your board, even a little slight bit, it's so that it doesn't bend. That's fine. You can move it all the way back again. These slots do not need to line up with the white lines because you can see here, I've got slots here, white line here. When you've got your fabric down, you can't see them anyway. So they don't need to line up. You're kind of only concentrating on what's here, not what's on the board. But don't forget to do these up again. Otherwise, it will move while you're trying to cut. Now, this is a self-healing cutting mat. If you think of when you cut yourself and it's got garden dirt in it or whatever, you need to clean that so that the wound can heal, correct? Well, it's the same with these. This has got all fibers in it, and well, we've moved it, which is fair enough, but I like to just get a wet, this is a microfiber cloth, and it's damp, and just give it circle, circle, circle. You can see my whole table is moving here. Just like this. Clean your board. The moisture rejuvenates it, but you can, I don't know if you can see that very well, but all the fibers that were in, this was a perfectly clean cloth before, and now they're all on here. That is now cleaned, and the slot that just cut can now heal itself. So you can use all of this board, you can flip it around, and then lo and behold, you can do the other side as well. So that gives you 4 times the length of the board. We do sell replacement boards if anyone's ever in need of them. These are really, they're quite soft, but quite firm. I can't describe it any other way. They heal really very well. Some of them, other brands don't. When we first started, some of you may have gotten a green board. They were the best we could get at the time. We have now modified and done a lot of research, and these ones are the ones that we love. I've got 2 different versions of the purple. Also our rotary cutters. These are specifically made for us. They are super, super light. But what I have found is lately, a couple of ladies have said, yes, it's very light, but because it's fairly thin, it's hard for them to grip because they have arthritis. So they can't put that pressure on their hand. So what we've come up with is this version. I made them green so that you can tell the difference. It's actually a little bit wider. Can you see the difference in those? It's still super light. I can't believe how light it is. You've done a really good job on these, Ralph. Super light, but they're a little bit wider, so you don't have to have that squeeze pressure as much. So if anyone's after one of those, do let me know at the end. And I have a couple to give away today, so get those. Yes, and this one also. This one doesn't lock as such, but this one, simple thumb down, and it's got a lock on it, which makes it a little bit safer for if you've got little ones around. Always, always, always pop your blade back in when you're putting it down. Doesn't matter if you're still cutting your quilt. If you put that down with the blade out, you run the risk of cutting your fingers because you'll bury it like I do, like this, and then go, oh, where's my blade? Oh dear, and now you've gone through your fingers. So always put your blade down. And I've been chipped a couple of times. People say, oh, you didn't put your blade down. I just do it so fast that it's always down. It's just an automatic response. So that's the strip cutter. Now let me show you, if you want to cut, let's say these were 1.5 inch strip. Let me get a 2.5. All right. That's a strip. You know your jelly rolls. You can cut all your fabric up with your jelly rolls. If you want diamonds, you simply lay it on the line. Remembering it was 2.5. So we're going to cut. This is a bit more dramatic, but you get the idea. I should have put my 2.5 inch guide in, shouldn't I? Then I have 2.5 inch diamonds. You can cut your rectangles by popping it along the line, cutting it wherever you need to. And yes, it even does squares for those of you who remember that story. I did the big demonstration. You've all seen the movie, and I demonstrate strips and rectangles and triangles and diamonds. And a lady rang me and says, but does it do squares? Yes, yes, it does. Okay, there you go. Easy, easy, easy. Now I want this one here to show you some of the rulers. Strip cutter, super simple. Keep it clean, move your board, and when you need a new one, just let me know and we can ship those out to you as well. And yes, the boards last a very long time. The rotary cutters last a very long time. We also do sell the blades. They're $15 for 3 if anyone wants them. Let me move on to the rulers. Now the safety rulers, I'm just going to pop that aside for a moment. And by the way, that says studio, not stupid. One of our girls said, why? Sue Hatton said to me, why does that say stupid? Because from where she was looking, it looked like it had, no, it's studio. So we have our mini, our short, and our long. I will go through each one of these. We have our rabbit ruler. And who can tell me why it's called a rabbit? Lisa. All right, at the end, Lisa, I'm going to call on you first because you were your first to put your hand up. I'm going to call on you to tell everybody why it's called the rabbit. This is our 60-degree triangle ruler and also our square off ruler. I know when you do your blocks, they're always perfectly aligned. You never need to trim anything off. There's never, ever anything that stop falling off your chair, Wendy. Yeah, that's what this one's for. It's for trimming off all those squares that don't need trimming. I'm going to go through each one. Now the mini is absolutely fabulous for the little tiny jobs. So let's say I've got a whole heap of, the whole point of the strip cutter is layer it. So if I had a whole heap of, well, let me just do that for you. I might as well do it. What do you reckon, Ralph? All right, I'm going to cut. This is something that I feel people just don't utilize enough. Put it in the slot and away you go. So that's 3. If I needed Janita's famous story about her 2-inch squares, and it was actually 196 of them, darling. I know you said 156, but it was 196. You can lay them like this all the way down. Now, if I needed another color, you could lay them on top. So you can do a couple of layers at the one time. Give them a wiggle so it's within the selvages there. And then this is how I cut so many quilts so quickly. If you're not sure, go through it again. Make sure that you've cut those. That's super simple. Yes, easy, but now I want to cut these. You could leave them all where they are, or you could layer them on top of each other. Pop your little mini down, point to point, and straight through the lot. It doesn't move because you're using one finger. The mini is fabulous for that. You're short, thank you, brain gone. The short one is fabulous. It's also got the 45 there. So if you're trying to cut something on the 45 and you really need to be accurate, let's say you need to cut down here somewhere, you're cutting here, you're not cutting here. You can use this for measuring. That's why we have the numbers down the side, the measurements down the side, but always use the slot. I learned a valuable lesson the other day. Practice what you preach, woman, because I picked one up that, and of course it moved and I had to cut a whole new set. So please, please, please. And also you can see this is the laser printed side. That is the underside. So this is where it's printed. This is the right way up.
Which means accuracy.
Which means accuracy, exactly. Because with the rulers, the printing can be distorted. This is laser pinpoint perfect and straight through. So you can see what I'm doing there. This one's for your borders. The long one is fabulous for borders. Once again, the 45 degree. If you've got a really long quilt and you're wanting to do that, you can pop it here. To cut, let's say, a large triangle, you can cut a 17-inch square, fold it in half point to point and cut straight through that because you can line it up on one of the lines and go right through. Really handy. I use them all the time. Lisa, can we have an unpin? Lisa, why is it the rabbit?
Ralph invented the rabbit alongside the release of the rabbit quilt. It's a little bit heavier and thicker, and it doesn't, none of them move, but it's a little bit handy.
It's very stable, isn't it?
It's very stable. I use the rabbit the most out of all of them. It's probably taught me to use all of them the most, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
To get used to using a safety ruler, the rabbit is the one that's taught me to do that because it's heavier and easier and more stable.
Thank you. And it's also
a good length.
And it is a good length, isn't it? It's, kind of the same length as that, but wider than that one. And it really is a good solid one. And it also has a little rabbit in the corner, which is very important. We were actually, I think it was Sue Hatton that said, thank you, Lisa. You have won one of our brand new rotary cutters for your input there. How good is that? All right, I'm going to put you on mute there. So one of my dear friends said to me, "Oh, what rabbit is Ralph going to pull out of a hat now?" So we had a whole big thing, and he invented this so that I could make the rabbit quilt. If you haven't seen that, jump online and have a look. But it's very handy because it is a whole lot more stable. These are fabulous for every job that you need, but this one is just that little bit more, and it's oompier. It just holds everything in place as you're going through. So there's just, and if you're not sure, go through again, make sure. And the measurements on this, you're still at the 45, very handy. Now our triangle, thank you, Lisa, for having your input there. And Janita, for your contribution in the first place. If you would like one of these too, you may let me know. Our 60-degree triangle ruler, I'm going to cut a 6.5-inch strip. I know I've got a bit of a collection here, but that's okay. It can live on the floor for the minute. The cleaner will pick that up, aka I'm the cleaner. But that's okay too. I will do this. I'll cut a 6.5-inch strip. Now you don't have to have 6.5 with this one, obviously. If you need a 3-inch triangle, you can do that. Actually, I'm going to pick up one of the ones I tossed on the floor. And I'm going to cut a 6.5 here to start with. And if you can count, you don't even have to go all the way to the 0, because that's on 1 and I want 6.5. So obviously I'm going to cut 7.5. Now here's the tricky thing with the triangle ruler. And we just demonstrated Aussie steps, and this is what we use for that one. Now I'm going to square off the corner. You can put it wherever you feel comfortable with it. Go to the tip and go to the tip. So now I've lined up the bottom here and I've got the tip at the top there. Easy. Now you don't need to turn all this around to make your next one. Because of all of the markings on here, and Ralph is clever and Leanne is lazy, you just move it across until it all lines up again on the point. So you're not having to turn that round and round and round. You can cut really, really quickly. That's a 6.5. Now, if I wanted 2.5, pop it down. Same principle, always the point at the top. Oh, and if I've said you've got a gift coming, tell me about it, because, you know, I'm forgetting, I'm hopeless. I have my head too full of quilts to remember things like that. And going across, lining it all up again. And obviously, that's for your little hexies. Okay, so that's that one. We use it extensively for Aussie steps, Aussie blocks, and a few others. Now, this is our 45-degree square off ruler. So, you know, we all love to use up our scraps and all that sort of thing. Okay, this is a triangle I cut ages ago for one of our quilts, but now I want to make a corner. I want to make a square out of it. So what I'm going to do, pop it down. You can put this wherever you feel comfortable on your board. And I'm going to cut a 4-inch square out of this one so that I'm reusing all of my scraps. I've lined up the 4 and the 4, hand flat, in the teardrop, and across. You can put that wherever you, if you're comfortable there, you can put it comfortably here and go this way, whatever suits you best, always cutting away from yourself. And now I can reuse that out of all my scraps. So you can go back to your scrap bin, tidy up all those pieces and use them really simply, and pretending like you've got a square that needs a block that needs trimming up. This will do up to 8.5. Put it down, trim it up. Let's pretend this one, trim it up, turn it around and trim the other 2 sides. Really very handy. So they're all of our safety rulers. We have a specialty ruler. These are our standard ones. The specialty one that isn't in the packs anymore is this one. Because this was our very first safety rule that Ralph ever invented. You've got your lovely curves for doing things like drunkard's paths or Aussie paths, because most of the places we go, we don't really use the word drunkard. So yeah, Aussie path, all those sorts of things. Some of you will have this one. I do use it a lot, but a lot of people have said, oh, it's not something that they use all the time. I have no idea why, because I use it for our 8-hour quilts, our manias, but you can also use the strip cutter for those instead of this one. So if you haven't seen this one for a while, haven't seen the 8-hour quilt done on the strip cutter, that's the new video that's up as well. You're more than welcome to have a look at that. So when I'm in my sewing room and I'm struggling with something, Ralph sees that, he watches what I do, and then comes up with a new invention to solve that problem. Hence the rabbit ruler, because I was trying to use, I needed the long one for something. The short one wasn't quite heavy enough, and it's specifically this size. For anyone who's done a rabbit quilt, you know why it's this size, so you can measure along. So he raced out and did that. The whole point is that if there's something that you're not sure of and you're having trouble with, drop me a line and maybe we can help solve it in some way. I think that's all I want to explain today. If there's something that anyone else has a question about, I would love some input and some feedback and questions, and I'm more than happy to explain everything over again. The most important thing is your position and moving the board. I find that most people forget to move their board. Even our regulars have said, oh, my blade is dull. Why is that? It's not. Move your board, clean your board. Just like my sewing machine, I clean my sewing machine before I start. I clean my sewing machine halfway through a quilt and I clean it at the end. Why do I clean it at the end and then before I start again? Because of the dust that's accumulated in the week that I haven't been there. The same with your board. Please clean it at the end of the day. If you live in a really dry area or you've got the air conditioner on all the time, it will suck the life out of your board. You know how sometimes they get really, really stiff? If you don't have a container, a wash tub, a bathtub that you can soak your board in, you will not destroy it if you put it in cold water. I don't mean hot water. They should always be cold water. Put it in cold water and let it soak overnight. It will help lift those fibers. Once again, with the microcloth, clean it. We're trying to extend the life of your board. Yes, I know I'm a terrible salesperson because no, don't do that and buy more boards. No, keep the one you've got. That's what it's for. Clean it and look after it, and it will last you a very, very, very long time. The same with your blades. Make sure you clean those. It gets, as you know, when you do this, just even have a look here. I don't know if you can see that. I cleaned this before I started, and I don't know if you can see all through there is all the gunge from cutting the quilts, cutting the fabric just now. So always give your blade a clean before you pop it away for the day.
Can we get replacement measurement guides? You know, the little ones you put along the bottom?
Yes, absolutely. Yep. We've had people whose dogs eaten them. Husbands have thought they were rubbish and thrown them out. I had one whose RoboVac ate them. There you go. They're $25. They're really tricky to post. So if you're getting something else, we can pop those in, no problem. Happy to post them separately, but they are $25 and it's a set of 3.
Yeah, thank you, Leanne. Is there any tips or tricks? So when I'm cutting maybe a single bit of fabric, especially because I make a lot of scrapped stuff.
Yeah.
And I've got scraps and I've got it on I'm right-handed, so that right-handed end, and I might have little bits. And if I'm too close to that right-hand side, I have to remember to put my hand on the top to stop it all slipping and to stop it cutting. I mean, if I'm cutting, I try and cut sort of 4 to mostly 4 layers at a time, but sometimes with my scraps I just can't do that, and I just find that
of course
it does slip. It does slip, and my husband uses my mat more than I do. I'll just say to him, I need 22-inch strips and whatever. But
I tend not to put, if I'm squaring up, like say one piece, I tend not to put it right at the edge, because as you say, that like I was saying before, if it kinks out for you for the first couple of times, you can pop your finger there just to do that one. But you don't have to always start at 0. If you know you need a 2-inch, move it over and put it wherever you want it. Put it on the 5. And then you can go.
I mean, I certainly do that if I'm using one piece, but if you saw what I cut out have on my whole board, sometimes it's lots and lots and lots of little
Oh, so you put it all
little
over?
pieces.
Yeah.
Put it all over, and then it's like, I shouldn't have
That-
cut. I shouldn't have had been so close to that edge with that single piece of fabric.
It's really, there's not much of a trick that I can, other than popping your finger there as you cut, because a single layer, you've got the thickness of this board. It's really made for multiple from there. But if you've got lots and lots here, just simply do that. Pop your finger there and go through. It just holds that down while you cut it. I just never even thought about it, but that's what I do. You just mentioned it because I do it every day. I never thought about it, but yeah, that's what I do. If I'm cutting right over here, sometimes I'll put my finger there because it doesn't slip as such. It's just that this isn't like right down on it, if you know what I mean.
On it, yeah.
So
yeah,
as you're doing this, you've got to do something with your hand anyway. So I mean, I tend to put my hand down. Just what am I going to do? Stick it on my head? And yes, I have cut an entire quilt with my hand on my head in front of people using one hand only. Looked a right goose, but that was what I was challenged. One piece, if you've got them all over the board, as I said, you don't have to start there, but if you're cutting from here and you're not sure, if it's slipping when you're doing this, pushing up, you're pushing too hard. The rotary cutter and the board, you need some pressure. You don't need to cut through. Most people, when they first try it, they're here, they put their blade in, we see them at the shows, and they just about cut the board in half with the amount of pressure that they put on. You don't need to. It's just straight through. And because your blade is sharp, the thing is clean, you just go straight through. As you can see, it's not moving at all. But yes, I totally agree, Helen, when it's right over here. And also depending on the fabric, I've noticed that batiks, particularly, if you put batik there, the batik tends to get cut into that slot. And that's when I go, oh, that's right, I got to move it. So then I move it and cut again, and it's perfect. But if you're having that issue, simply pop your finger on it as you go through. And it's only for that first one. The rest of it will sit perfectly.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be on the slot right next to it, but just so that the fabric is.
And yeah, exactly. As Ralph said, it doesn't have to be on the slot right next to it. You can have it here. It's just to hold that little bit of fabric in place when you're cutting the single thickness. And I totally agree. That is, it's because this is thicker and that one isn't. So it's made for multiple layers, I guess you'd say. But I tend to use the middle of the board quite a lot.
Hi, I was just going to say, as a relative newbie to all the quilting process, your strip cutter has made it really easy. And for my, I'll go simple brain, I understood all your squares and your rectangles. But doing the step class earlier on and then this one, showing some of those angles has been interesting. It never, that didn't work in my head till I saw it.
Yeah. Very good point. See, because I do it so often, and it's the same as if you're in your job, you're doing the same thing over and over and over again. So there are some things you forget to actually impart to somebody else because it's in your makeup. It's just what you do every day. Julie, thank you so much for that. That was absolutely a great. Would you like me to show that again for you, Julie?
Yeah, that would be great.
Yes,
please.
So specifically what we were doing this morning? Or just anything
even the one you did just then was really quite interesting. As I said, it just doesn't comprehend in my head how to do that so easily.
Okay.
So
this is the one we were playing with this morning for the Aussie steps. To cut the angle, if you want a 45-degree angle, most of the boards have a 45 and they have a 60 on them. Have a look. If you want a 45, you simply pop it down. And using any of your safety rulers, it has a 45-degree mark on it. If you've got one in front of you, you can have a look at that. It's got a 45. You can put it down on here to make sure you line up your 45, put it to the corner. And yes, it's got a 45 on there, but what do you do when you get further over? Well, that's what this is for. making sure you're in the corner and on the 45. You can go this way, away from yourself, or you can simply come over this side. You get a great aerobic workout as you're doing it. And cut that angle. Now, as you cut that up, if you want, say, what are we going to do? 2.5 inches. You measure 2.5 inches on your ruler. That's my 2.5 inch mark. And I'm simply going to cut through again. And you get all those delicious angles, perfectly straight every time. If you want a 60 degree, pop it down. This is a 60 degree angle. You can use your board if you've got a 60 degree. You don't have to. Once again, I'm just going to cut that. Things like Lone Stars are 45 degree, and things like our Aussie steps are the 60 degree. So I'm simply cutting that. And let me just use a different ruler just to demonstrate something different. You've got your slot, you've got your measurements. You can start at either end, it doesn't matter, but you measure your 2.5. So I've come in 2.5. I'm going to do this one too, actually, just to show you something different. Put your blade in. Now you can see, normally you put your blade in the teardrop. If that's not possible because of where you are on your board, you can simply slide it into the slot and you cut through. So that's 2. If I wanted 2.5, measure 1, 2.5, and away you go. It's just so simple to do. Now on your cutting board itself, and with the strip cutter, you have 45s, you have 60. If you want a diamond, whatever size you want that, if you want it 3.5 inches across, you just put your, this is a 2.5, pop it down. You can pop your 2.5 inch guide in there if you want to make it easier for you. I just, as I said, cut 60 quilts a week. So it's just Sunday sales coming up, girls. Warning, warning, warning. Be fast if you want a mystery quilt. They are fun. I just know that half these people want me to shut up so they can go and buy a mystery quilt. All right, that's how you do those. So thank you so much for joining me today in our strip cutter workshop. I hope those hints and tips have helped. You can see the videos online or on our Facebook page. So our website is www.aussiequickquilt.com. Go to the tips and freebies page and you'll find them there. And also there is a strip cutter tab at the top there. You can have a look for some videos there. Until I see you next time, bye for now.